there's almost a shift in responsibility at this point. I know accountants didn't go to school to become IT professionals, but they're being asked to be IT professionals by their clients at this point. Our accounting clients are coming to us saying, how can we advise them? And so we educate them. Here are the things that your clients should be doing. And if they don't know how to do it, send them to us. We'll talk to them about it. But it's about password management. It's about multi-factor authentication. It's about cybersecurity training. It's about threat protection, not just using whatever piece of junk antivirus came on the computer you bought at Best Buy, right? You need a better mousetrap. So that's what we're seeing. That's the shift that we're seeing in terms of cybersecurity, especially as it relates to accountants.
Hey everyone, it's Eric Green. Thank you for joining us on this week's Tax Rep Network podcast. I am joined by a great friend of mine, Sam Schuemacher. Sam is a senior consultant at Visory. And if you're not familiar with Visory, I highly recommend you consider it because what we're going to get into today in terms of Trump and DOGE and the IRS, there's something that nobody's talking about. Right? They're talking about the tariffs. They're talking about the layoffs, and we can talk about all that. There's a move now online, right? Everything should be done online through the portal. What Sam and I think we're going to get into today is we're trading one headache for another. All right. The increased risk of fraud, data security issues, and tax professionals and accountants, bookkeepers are a major target of that. All right. So again, if you're not familiar with Visory, Visory is a hands-on tech for cybersecurity and streamlining operations for accountants, consultants, and a number of businesses. I found it actually through tax rep members of mine who highly recommended it to me. We checked it out, but yeah, Sam, it is a changing landscape.
It's been shifting a ton. I joined Visory 9 years ago, and at that time, it was really about, hey, how do we collaborate in the cloud? And now it's, hey, we're collaborating in the cloud, but we don't know if we're safe. And how do we make sure that we're doing what the FTC is telling us we have to do to protect sensitive data? And so the conversation, the narrative has shifted a ton. And what we've seen over the last few months from the executive orders is accelerating a lot of that. The whole no paper check thing. That one, I'm envisioning accountants becoming tech support for their clients who are suddenly being forced into a digital banking world and need to be able to manage a password and know how to click all the buttons. And that's going to be a big shift.
Well, for those of you who don't follow the YouTube channel, you can go check this stuff out. I've been very vocal about this. So the IRS, first of all, just so everyone knows, 5% of Americans don't have a home computer or a smartphone. All right. 5% of Americans is 17 million people. Just to put that in perspective. So I know it's at 5%. Oh, it's only 5%. We're 95% of the way there. It's 17 million people. That's a lot of people. The IRS has laid off 2,000 people who answer the phones. They are closing 110 offices, many of which house the taxpayer assistance centers. So it always was, look, worst case, we get these calls. I owe $500. You're not hiring a law firm to do that, right? I'd say, look, go downtown here in New Haven. It's 150 Court Street. Go to the walk-in center. You might wait a little while, but you can talk to somebody at the IRS. You can make your payment, get copies of whatever you need, all right? And it gets a little busier during, February, March, and April. But overall, it was a huge help. Elderly people that don't necessarily have access to a computer or a computer that's in a secure area. Like you can go to the public library. I don't think I'd be uploading my tax stuff through that. Well, that's going to go away. And so initially, Sam, I'm like, well, DOGE, the tech bros, they're going to come in. Commissioner Werfel had, I thought, a great plan, 5 years modernization. And my thought was they were going to come in and say, 5 years, no, 18 months. We're going to get this done. And then through natural attrition, 65% of the IRS could leave in 5 years anyway. So, in other words, let's get the tech and the infrastructure in place. And then you'll see the phone calls drop. We can then start, letting people just on their own retire, give them an incentive to leave early. Instead, they came in, got rid of everybody, and the online system's not fixed. I'll give you an example for those of you listening. And Sam, I know you don't really do IRS stuff, but I can call the IRS, and if you owe less than 250,000 and could full pay within what's left on the 10-year collection statute, I can set up right over the phone. No financial documents necessary, just set up right over the phone installment agreement. The online system only goes to 50,000. So now I can't, and they just got rid of half the people that answer the phones. And so it's now become this. I think we're going to have a couple years of just real chaos. But what I want to highlight for everyone today, and again, I've been blabbing about this on YouTube for weeks. What I want to highlight and say, and what I've dragged you onto here for, all right, the IRS has 1 million attempted hacks a week. The weak link, and you talk to the IRS privately, they'll tell you the weak link are the tax professionals. That's the back door into the IRS. And you mentioned the elimination of the paper checks, which I do want to get into. And for those folks listening, Sam, you saw the announcement that President Trump wants the IRS to get away from mailing checks. Everything should be done electronically, which again, sounds great. How many people, though, are unbanked?
Right.
Unfortunately, more than you think.
Right.
And we have a fraud issue, potential fraud issue. For instance, I think most accountants and most people listening to this, well, I understand people hack in and they file a false return. Not the crafty folks. They're not going to file anything that would tip the hand that you've been hacked, that you have a data breach. What they'll do is go into the returns, legitimate returns that you're about to file, and they will change the banking information. So accountant sends it to the client says, yeah, all looks good. And when they go to hit send, there is a hold period while that return gets uploaded. They're like front running, and they'll change it there so that the return that the client got has the right banking information. What goes into the IRS has the hacker's information. And what happens is a week to 10 days go by. Now the client's calling saying, when am I getting my refund? Look at the return. Everything looks right. Now they start calling the IRS. You're on hold. You're waiting. Refunds can only be held up to 6 months sometimes. Meanwhile, money's gone. So what do you see the issue with the paper checks?
Well, a few things, and you touched on it. So you've got unbanked people. You have 5% of the country, 17 million people that don't have smartphones, broadband, home computers, which in 2025 may seem shocking. And yeah, when you talk about 5%, doesn't feel very impactful. You talk about 17 million people, and suddenly that's a significant number. Beyond that, you've got your rural and elderly populations that are in this mix, and those are going to be populations that are not educated on complex password management. They're not educated on making sure multi-factor authentication is turned on to all of these sensitive systems. They're not educated on how to look for red flags in these emails that they're now going to be getting, and they're going to be clicking on anything that comes in that looks legitimate. Ultimately, the IRS is one of the most spoofed emails that people are getting. So now what have we done? We've orchestrated control over banking. So, right, we're forcing people into the banking system. We're now replacing, in some ways, fraud with cyber risk for a vulnerable population. And all of that's going to lead to a fair bit of chaos and headaches, and accountants are going to be the ones that are answering the questions about tech support and how do I reset my password, and someone stole my credentials. What do I do next? All of it's going to go right back to accountants.
I have been a fan of, and I'll tell you why they won't do it. I've been a fan of, unless the banking information matches the prior year, I should have to upload proof. Statement something. The problem with that is it slows down the refund, and there's a lot of Americans who on January, when do they release the documents? Like January 26th, sometime around there. They're in H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt or whatever, want my refund. They're even willing to give up part of it to get it in advance from
On the
APR.
little card, right? On the little credit cards that you can get.
And so anything that slows down that the system, I mean, like I have to tell you the truth, and Congress knows about this. We could eliminate all fraud. It's not that hard. You file your returns, but there will be no refunds till June after we've matched all the data that comes in from the employers.
Mm-hmm.
Go and tell that to the American public. People are going to lose their minds. Literally, people, I spoke to one of our state, one of our Connecticut reps in Congress, and I mentioned that. He said, people will lose their shit if you tell them
Yep.
wait 4 months for your refund.
Yeah.
And so we just accept an amount of fraud. 17 million people, figured 25% are actually return file. There are 350 million people in America, but we only file about 150 million returns, families, married couples, that kind of stuff. So let's say a third of those 17 million, 6 million file. You're talking about if it were $1,000 theft each, it's 6 billion. So what are they looking to save? 30 billion from the cuts at the IRS? I got an easier one for you. Why don't you just figure out a better way to have people, confirm? For instance, we file the return like PayPal. We put $1 in your account, confirm. Yeah, it's going to hold it up 3 days. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on board with that. I'm good with it.
Why not? I mean, the PayPal's a great example. It works for bad actors. Think about the method where they know the routing number. The routing number is going to be the same for thousands upon thousands of bank accounts for the same bank. And now they can start guessing at bank account numbers and they'll get a little hit, a little PayPal charge, 90 cents, 65 cents, something totally under the radar and totally innocuous looking. But once it's successful, it's $500, it's $300, it's $600. And over the course of a few days or weeks, thousands of dollars could be siphoned out of your bank account. It happened to one of our employees.
Oh no, I know a very, very good attorney, 500,000 taken. And it's not like he's an idiot, a really smart guy.
Yeah.
Just, what it is, we're all too busy. If we had this here, we talk about spoofing for about 6 months, about once a month, I or my law partner would get a message from someone at the firm. Do you need me to pick up these gift cards now or can I do it later? What are you talking about? We had our former controller call us and say, I'm trying to set up that wire you want done. My law partner was like, what wire? He said, you emailed me to wire this. No, no, no. Well, and as it turned out, we need multiple signatures from partners who have to log in and approve something to prevent that. But yeah, he was going to send $65,000 to somebody. And so, for those of you who don't know what spoofing is, you can make an email look like they made it look like it was coming from me or my partner, Jeff. But if you go and carefully look at the email, you put the mouse on it, you'll see the actual address, and it's never one of us, it's from someone else. So we actually sent an email. No one at this firm is to ever buy gift cards. If we want no offense, if I want to get gift cards for clients, I'll go do it myself. I'm not going to tell you to go buy gift cards on the way in. But yeah, no, they literally went from person to person to person at the firm to try to get somebody to do it.
I think that story really highlights the need for consistent cybersecurity awareness training and testing. And that's one of the things that we've been talking with accountants a lot about, not only for their firms, but for their small business clients, because that's in their blind spot. So what you're talking about is looking for red flags and policies. You're talking about, are we adhering to our policy that we've marketed within our organization? Everybody knows we have a policy that we have an approval process for AP. We have an approval process for gifts. We have all these protocols that are put in place to protect the business, protect the data, and just avoid scams. With our accountants, we've been talking about that a lot because, while most of our accountants at this point are enrolled in some sort of cybersecurity awareness training so that they can look for that spoofing, they know to look for Eric Green, but Green spelled with an M in the email address. They They're starting to get wise to that and they're starting to be a little more protected. But their small business clients haven't even begun to invest in any of those safeguards.
Well, and I will tell everyone if you don't have anything like Visory, so we have a tax rep network we have cybersecurity insurance because have credit cards, we run webinars, all this stuff. We have a lot of information. They test our systems. They've come in and checked, and we actually got, they noticed we had a remote desktop, something that was open
Yep.
from one of our consultants who was doing work for us.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is a violation of your cybersecurity policy. We were like, oh, shoot. Right. And so our policy, it seems almost on a monthly basis, goes and at least externally looks at our firewall, our website, all that stuff. But we have to check off that, no, we have a data security plan. We're utilizing Visor, whatever it is we're doing. And nobody wants to deal with this. I know the folks listening, Sam, the accountant's like, look, I already now have to be an accountant. I'm also a psychologist for my clients. I'm a little bit of a bank because I can't bother with ignition and getting paid up front or whatever. Now I got to be a cybersecurity expert. You don't. That's why you get Visory. They do it. Okay. That's same thing. I mean, no, it's like a car. I can drive it. I don't know how it works. So, I'd rather let Sam deal with it. A couple other things, though, I do want to talk about with the IRS, especially the modernization pause, right?
Mm.
And when I first saw the headline, it shocked me. And as I think about it, it doesn't shock me. What are your thoughts when you saw that?
So to me, it's like we're going to land an airplane that's in flight so that we can check the GPS and make sure we're going in the right direction. Me personally, I feel like pausing innovation right now when we just started piloting direct file in I think we're up to like 25 states or something like that. This is a peak government move to pause to think about and pausing innovation so we can think about innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand maybe putting a project on pause,
Right.
but no, I agree with you. And you know, there's one of the ideas was to eliminate taxes on, pick a number, 150,000 or whatever it is.
Mm.
The direct file is such an easy to me, if you get a W-2, and that's most of America,
Yeah.
why can't you just log on and confirm? Why do I have to go into H&R? And again, I'm not bashing H&R Block or the accountants. Why should I go pay to have my return done? Can I log in? Yep, W-2, I confirm that, and submit, and maybe confirm my banking information hasn't changed. If it does, I have to upload something. That's my thing, and call it a day. It just seemed like an obvious thing if the government wanted to help people. So again, I understand that if there were certain projects that the DOGE folks looked at and said, well, wait a minute. A pet one of mine, all right, is I've posted pictures. I don't know if you've seen them with the mail that I get every day from the IRS, stacks. And what do? We open it. I look for any deadlines, anything like that. We scan it and shred it.
Mm-hmm.
The government is spending about 10 million a year, roughly, printing and mailing. Now, I understand I'd have to opt in because there are some people, again, unbanked or they don't have a computer. So you're not getting rid of the mail entirely. Why can't we get Smart Vault? Licensed Smart Vault. Eric has an account with the IRS that I had checked off that I confirmed, and let them just put the stuff in my inbox. I get an email. You have, notices. Let me log in. First of all, I'd appreciate it. I could just download it and save it instead of opening, scanning, shredding.
Even as an individual, I don't know what the viability of it would be, but encrypted emails, like why can't there be a secure portal or an encrypted email service that allows me to communicate with the IRS? We've been going back and forth by snail mail with the IRS now for a little better than a year on my wife's deceased aunt's tax return. They keep coming back with, oh, you didn't check this box. And so, okay, great. So we'll check this box. And no, you need a new one because now the date has to be changed. So we've gone back and forth for over a year at this point. via mail. So we wait and we wait, and then we get our envelope in the mail. We open it, we see what little thing wasn't right this time, and we fix it and ship it back off. And so, like, this could have been done in a 2 week period if it would have just been in a portal. That,
Right.
right? It's
Well, and that gets back to if they could fix the online experience,
mhm.
even if you got half the people to use it. I mean, they get 10 million calls a year. Get rid of 5 million of them. This is an incremental thing to my mind, right? It's almost like the compound effect. I don't know if you ever read Darren Hardy's book, but he talks about the compound effect where little things
Yeah.
really make a big difference. So, just like, and again, even if it's only the tax pros that opted into this, that's where a lot of the mail goes to. I mean, the accounting firms
Yeah.
get tons and tons
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah. It's mostly the firms. Sure.
Get rid of that. Um, so from your perspective, talking about cybersecurity, these new risks that you see from your vantage point, what should people be thinking about?
There was a so Eric, there was a time not too long ago that cybersecurity was really considered IT's problem. It was a function of the business, but it wasn't something that Sally at the front desk needed to worry about, because we worked in offices, we had confined networks, our threat perimeter was our four walls of our office largely. 15, 20 years ago, we started to see some more remote work. So we had some new risks associated with that. It wasn't just a matter of securing what's in the office. Now we had some people with remote desktops or VPNs, and they were accessing some data remotely. And so we had to build a better mousetrap at that point. And now with the big push to digital for everything, even at this level with the IRS, we really need to put a renewed focus on policies and policy enforcement, and knowing what good policies are. And the IRS actually has some pretty good templates out there for small businesses and practices. We've got a template that we've modified. We based it on the IRS template that we share with our customers. We help them write them. I think that for small businesses, so now we're talking about the clients of accountants and tax preparers and bookkeepers. For most small businesses, the only consultant that they have in their world is the accountant, is the bookkeeper. Like, that's the person that they look to help protect their financial future. They look to them for strategy. They look to them to tell them where they're going to be in Q4 and whether or not they can afford to add another truck to the fleet for the bread company. And so there's almost a shift in responsibility at this point. I know accountants didn't go to school to become IT professionals, but they're being asked to be IT professionals by their clients at this point. Our accounting clients are coming to us saying, how do we help them? How can we advise them? And so we educate them. Here are the things that your clients should be doing. And if they don't know how to do it, send them to us. We'll talk to them about it. But it's about password management. It's about multi-factor authentication. It's about cybersecurity training. It's about threat protection, not just using whatever piece of junk antivirus came on the computer you bought at Best Buy, right? You need a better mousetrap. So that's what we're seeing. That's the shift that we're seeing in terms of cybersecurity, especially as it relates to accountants.
And I think you're right. With the more we go digital, the bigger the risk keeps
Yeah.
going. Because if we're dealing through all the portals, again, the easiest way in for someone looking to get access to data or access to the IRS system is through the tax professional. So, but you point out something that's interesting is, I've been focusing on us, right? The pro. My clients who are uploading things to me, who
Hmm.
sending a link to and all of that, they're actually now part of this whole chain. They're probably the weaker link.
Yeah, they're your biggest risk, because you think about social engineering. It is still faster and cheaper to hack a human than it is to hack a firewall. So these phishing emails, these social engineering, the MGM breach from 2023, right? It started with a phone call. It was talking someone into giving up a password, which ultimately got them into a very robust system and they were able to exfiltrate data. It's so much easier with a small business. You call Bob's Bicycle Shop. All Bob cares about is making sure that the school up the road has bikes that are functioning. He's not thinking about, is this phone call that I'm getting asking me to verify some information legit? Is this email that I just got asking me to click on this thing because it looks like it's from my accountant legit? It's so easy for someone to spoof something from you, send it to your client. Client thinks, oh, Eric needs me to go in and reset my password for this portal. Clicks on the link, gives up his credentials, and now you've got a bad actor that can upload anything into your system.
Right. No, it is, it's overwhelming in some ways. And then for the folks listening, so you have potential IRS fines.
Mhm.
You have the FTC because accountants are considered financial institutions.
Mhm.
Congratulations. I'm sure you all wanted to be a financial institution. And there are real possibility of fines, it's significant fines. Now, the key thing to avoid that, because I will tell you the truth, and Sam, you can give us your 2 cents. There are some hacks, they're just going to happen. The
Mhm.
hackers are just too good. I mean, you have state actors, North Korea, Russia, Iran. I mean, you have really very, very sophisticated hackers trying to get in. I've had folks from the IRS Stakeholder Liaison Office on before the podcast, and the takeaway was, look, if you have a firewall, multi-factor authentication, an offsite backup, you have software for malware and all of that. If you do all of that, I have Visory in place. I have a cybersecurity policy. We have written policies. We've done annual training, all that stuff. You won't get fined. They know that hacks will still happen, but you've done everything you can to prevent it. The people that are at risk, at least again, I'm working on the tax pros, are folks who do not do that. If the FTC shows up or this comes to their attention and you didn't do all of that, you didn't have a written information security program, a WISP. You
Mhm.
didn't have, backup. You didn't have some cybersecurity in place like Visory, whatever. You could, I think the fines are up to 50,000. And remember something for those folks listening, here's the risk. Tax professional gets hacked. They now have to send a letter to all their clients. Their data is out there. You're going to lose clients. Clients are going to be like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going somewhere else. Meanwhile, you now have to pay for credit monitoring for your former clients. Sam, we did this on a webinar. There was a CPA, 64 years old, was in the middle of selling his practice, suffered a data breach, did not have any of the stuff in place. Hard costs, actual out of pocket was 250,000, but he believes it actually cost him closer to 600,000 with lost business. It took him 10 years to rebuild his practice and he sold at 75. So it's more of I have to send an email to the client. Sorry, your refund got taken. We have to call the IRS. If you have a data breach, their data is now gone. All of your clients, you have to alert all of them. They're not going to stick around. They're going to blame you. They're going to get pissed. You have to pay for the credit monitoring, which is not inexpensive. You have, 500 clients you're paying monthly for. I don't know, what is that going to come to? 75,000 in credit monitoring for the year. And by the way, if you don't have all this stuff in place, this is not a malpractice issue. Hence why you want cybersecurity, cyber insurance for this. And the cyber insurance is going to want to know, hey, are you using Visory? Do you have a firewall? Do you have multi-factor? They're going to want, you have to go through all of that. So I know you're not going to plug Visory. I'm going to plug Visory. But no, this is why I don't want to know about, again, it's a car. I want to know how to drive it. I don't want to know how it works. That's Sam's job. So for those folks listening, if you're still on the fence about this stuff, you gotta do it. All right. And again, you don't need to be the IT expert. Call the people that are, it's not terribly expensive, and put the right stuff in place. If it does happen, you've done everything you can, right? You can sleep at night because I did everything I could. to minimize risk. I'm not facing additional fines on anything. And, hopefully you never have an issue.
And you bring up a good point. The reality of a breach goes far beyond the financial impact. Yes, you might have to pay a fine or you might have to pay a ransomware, but the reputational harm can be the thing that's the longest lasting. The good news is that while this is a big topic and there are just a million areas that we could go to talk about, how to stay safe, the IRS and the FTC have done a fantastic job of really building a roadmap. The IRS gives you 6 things to focus on. They say you need antivirus and it's got to be next gen. So we're talking about threat hunting. And the difference there is that you're threat hunting, it's the technology that's AI driven, that is looking at patterns of behavior that are active in your network or on your computer, and it looks for things that are consistent with bad things that it's seen in the past. So a pattern of behavior that could be bad. It's going to quarantine it, analyze it, and then make a decision about whether it needs to be remediated or it can go on its merry way. So, threat hunting is number one. A firewall, if you have a physical office, is so critical. Multi-factor authentication, backups. You mentioned backups, offsite backups. And I think that where people forget to back up is often their Microsoft suite or their G Suite. They think, oh, Microsoft's got that. It's in the Azure cloud. But the key there is that if you have a breach, you have a ransomware event, if you don't have a backup of your G Suite or your 365 environment, you do not have a layer of business continuity. You can't just roll back. You now are going to have to go through tons of manual remediation to get that fixed and get back into your data and your mail and calendars and contacts and all of that good stuff. So backups are key. Having disk encryption, if you're running a computer that's more than 5 years old, replace it. Let's get on something that's more modern, that has a chipset that's going to encrypt your disk, because not having encryption is like giving someone the keys to your house while you're away. If it's encrypted though, and they get a hold of your laptop, they're not going to be able to get that disk and get into it as long as you've got all the right protocols on there. And then a VPN for remote access. That's the IRS's map. That's their roadmap to security. The FTC takes it a little farther and they say, you know what, you should do a risk assessment, because how do you know what protocols to put in place unless you know what your risks are? And I love what they do with their language, Eric. They say you need reasonable control for reasonable risk. So, I wouldn't expect Sally's bookkeeping to have the same measure of security controls as KPMG. That's just unrealistic. Sally's got a much smaller risk profile than KPMG and a much smaller budget. So reasonable risk. Let's put reasonable safeguards in place. So that's the biggest difference. And then of course, having a WISP is where the FTC comes in. They say you absolutely should define what your policies are around access controls. So does everyone need access to everything, or does Sam just need access to the tech stuff? And we'll leave all the client billing stuff over there in the finance department. So things like that. And I'm sure in your practice, not everyone needs access to every client.
Nope. And it is, and again, for the folks listening, it sounds like a lot. It actually isn't. All right.
Right.
Now, again, I'll tell you, the metaphor I use, when the weather began getting crazier and crazier about 10 years ago, we decided we need a whole house generator. My wife works from home. I sometimes work from home. The kids, whatever. I decided ridiculously to GC the job myself. I saved a little bit on the generator. I then got someone to do the trenching for the electrical. I hired the electrical company to install the whole thing, the gas, the propane. I think I saved $500, and I wasted so many hours dealing with this. Call Visory. And, it's easy. This is the kind of thing, penny wise, pound foolish. Could you sit and try to GC your own cybersecurity? Yeah, I guess I wouldn't. First of all, I'm not keeping up with everything, all right? I need
Right.
someone who does, who makes sure I've got all of these pieces in place, who, if I have to put together a written plan, here's a sample of one, right? In other words, you can knock this off pretty quickly and actually much more effectively by working with the right people. And so, listen, we're going to be doing a whole webinar on this May 15th. I'll put a link in the description, everyone. It's free. Check it out. We're going to do a lot on where the IRS is. We're going to go into a lot of this stuff in detail with Sam and some of these things that you should be thinking about. I'm also going to put a link down below. Sam, how's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
We can put my email out there.
Yep.
That's
All right. So
fine.
what I'll do, everyone, is I'll put Sam's contact email in the description. If this is something you're like, oh my God, I got to deal with this and I don't want to, Sam. All right. That's what you do. Email Sam. And I know April 15th, by the time you're listening to this, probably just passed. Great time of year to deal with this and make sure this is all in place. And yeah, no, we are going to see, and this is going to get more interesting, right? As we watch the government, for lack of a better term, fumble their way through this in terms of the modernization, what's going on with the IRS staffing, the whole online experience. I do think for everyone listening, we will get there eventually. I just think it's going to be a chaotic couple of years.
Well, and AI use policies, this is the time to start thinking about those. They're not required by the FTC, but I don't think anyone should wait for DC to tell us when to have an AI use policy. If you're not talking about the use of AI in your firm, I promise there's bring your own AI. BYO AI is how it's referred to in the industry. People are using ChatGPT. So you better have a policy in place that tells them how they can appropriately and safely use ChatGPT. It's happening now, whether you're talking about it with them or not.
Right. No, you know what? That's a good point. We've started using it. I use it mostly in my marketing. I don't really, although there is an Ask Blue Jay, which is it's a database for tax research. And the
Mm,
thing about ChatGPT, and this is my 2 cents before we go, garbage in, garbage out. So if you just go to ChatGPT and ask questions, it goes out on the web and it just brings back whatever it finds. Where I find it's very effective is where I take something, like I took an article I wrote. It was probably, I don't know, 8, 9 pages long, in Word, upload it into ChatGPT and say, please write me a 500-word blog from this.
yeah,
So I know the information it's pulling is good. And what I get out of it, little tweaking, is fantastic. So, but
yeah,
there have been lawyers who it's created bogus cases that they've
yes,
cited. Um,
yes.
yeah. So, I mean, like everything else, you need to be careful. It's a tremendous tool and it's going to be life changing, but you just need to understand how to use it properly. And I do think firms should have a policy on what are we going to use it for?
Yep.
And then how are we going to use it? And by the way, ChatGPT, I know is free. There are some paid ones like Ask Blue Jay where there's a database. It's more of a close and where they provide a lot of good information where you will get better results depending what you do. So there's a whole slew of AI tools, video stuff, graphics. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'd love to nerd out with you one day on this that executive order. What was it? The removing barriers to American leadership in AI, I think. The whole I'll narrow it down to one sentiment. Innovate now, we'll regulate later. We took the guardrails off of AI with this one, so it's going to be interesting to watch.
It feels like the Wild West. That might not necessarily be the greatest metaphor, but that's what it feels like.
People are akinning this one. They're likening it to the Manhattan Project of our age.
In terms of the shift, I think it probably is.
Hmm.
I mean, AI is going to eliminate entire industry
Yeah,
and create new ones.
and reshape the ones that remain.
Unbelievable. All right, Sam, listen, thank you for joining us. Everyone, thanks for listening in. I'm going to put the link to the webinar May 15th with Visory and Sam. So definitely, it's free, register, and I think you're going to get a ton of information. We'll have more updates by then on what the hell is going on with DOGE, IRS, President Trump, the tariffs, all of it. And I'll also put Sam's contact information. Reach out to him. This is serious stuff. And As I mentioned, the one CPA who I know who had a data breach. And by the way, I have another one. I have an enrolled agent who I'm very friendly. She speaks all over the country, so I don't want to name her. Ransomware,
Mm.
and she called the FBI and everything else, and they basically told her, pay it. There's nothing they can do really other than document it. She did pay the 10,000. They did release the data, but of course they copied everything. So she still had to let all her clients know. It's a nightmare.
It is. I think the lesson there, to just, double down on what you said, get help. Get help from a professional. This is not your area of expertise. And often you're going to benefit from the economies of scale from providers like Visory that are buying thousands upon thousands of these enterprise licenses that we can resell at what are affordable rates to a small firm.
Well, also, I find that talking to you guys, the guidance, Eric,
Mm.
you guys need this, you need that. Versus, again, am I going to go out and spend my nights on YouTube trying to, first of all, again, garbage in, garbage out, but trying to figure this out for myself. Even if I thought I did, and I have, I've listened to talks on experts, mostly to just understand what the hell's going on. I still let you guys do it.
There are some things we shouldn't DIY, and I have now added GCing my own whole home generator
Yeah, don't do that.
to the list.
You know what? It's a lot easier for the extra $500. Hire the company, let them show up, do the trenching, do the electrical, set the. You know what it is? I want to sit. I am better. And here's the reality: I am better off sitting in my home office, working for 4 hours, billing at my billing rate, and letting somebody else do what they do best. I wouldn't suggest, doing a DIY offer and compromise with the IRS. I'm not going to do a DIY cybersecurity for our firm or if I ever do another, if I have another, have another house, a whole
Yeah.
house generator.
Yep. Yep. Good life advice there, Eric.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right, Sam, thank you very much for doing this. Everyone, thanks for listening in. Do check out the link for May 15th. We'll see you on the webinar. Reach out to Sam. Tremendous resource for you, whether it's to review what you're doing now, help you close any gaps, or if you really are sitting there going, I've just been hoping to avoid all of this. Don't take the Chicken Little approach. It's time to deal with this because, well, let's put it this way. You're going to deal with it one way or the other, and you're much better off dealing with it proactively and avoiding the nightmare than going through the nightmare.
That's it. Be prepared.
Yeah.
All right, Eric. Looking forward to our next conversation.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for everyone. I'll see you next week on the podcast.